Right now, we have Sacramento County Sheriff Scott Jones on with us. Mr. Sheriff, thank you for joining us today. We do appreciate your time. I know you're extremely busy. And we got a question that a lot of people are asking. You have mandatory stay at home. You have stay at home, shelter in place, mandatory shelter in place. What does that mean to law enforcement?
Well, that's a good question because a lot of people have that and are reaching out to us on social media. But obviously, the order permits folks to leave their house for essential services such as getting food, taking care of other folks, going to doctor's appointments, that type of thing, or even going outside to recreate as long as folks are observing the social distancing guidelines. So, it's important for folks to know we're not doing vehicle stops. We're not stopping people asking for any sort of documentation. There's no documentation that's required. People are just going on about their lives under this order, and we are going on about our duty of law enforcement.
From your perspective, do you have to be an essential worker in order to be driving around if it isn't for something extremely important?
I think that's the gist of it, right? And it's a spirit versus the letter of the order. I think the spirit is, yeah, stay home. We want to flatten this curve. We want to, and it's not so much for the people that might be at risk in their home. It's for you might be an inadvertent carrier, be asymptomatic, not have any symptoms, but still be able to transmit it to someone who might be considered high risk. So that's really the importance. So I think the spirit of this order requires folks to stay in their home unless it's something quite important for their, for their lives at that moment.
So essential workers could be construction, it could be media, it could be law enforcement, fire. Is there anything that you would like documentation-wise for all of us to have in our vehicles that say, hey, I'm supposed to be on the road?
No, absolutely not. And that's a big rumor going out there, that and about the National Guard. But the other rumor is that there needs to be some sort of documentation. Some folks are downloading forms off the internet that they can establish their essential work and business for being out of the house. None of that's required. I mean, you still may get stopped for other vehicle code violations like you have before, but you won't be stopped just for the purpose of finding out what your essential business is. So we're kind of leaving that up to folks' good judgment to be able to decide whether it's important for them to be out of their house. And if folks have questions, and a lot of people say, hey, well, that business isn't required, that business isn't essential, or that person's out of their house for something non-essential, they can refer that to the health office of the county. They can do 311 on their mobile or landline phones and get right there and report that. And there might be an education component. The county health officer might be able to go out to a business and really ascertain whether they actually are essential in the midst of this order.
So let's say this thing goes on for a while. I mean, we're only a week or two into this. If this goes on for weeks, months, how worried are you about things getting extremely lawless from people who have lost their jobs, have no money, have no food, and might be doing things that are completely out of character?
Well, the out of character part is right. I mean, I think everybody right now, things are pretty calm. I mean, even going to, my own grocery store, it seems like everybody's kind of being pretty calm, but things could progress, obviously. It's important to also know that there is a hammer associated with this county and the state order. It is technically a misdemeanor. There could be fines and fees attached for violations. I don't really want to enforce any of that. I don't think any of the law enforcement agencies in the county want to enforce that, but it's important for folks to know that there is a hammer. So if things progress and become worse, we could enforce that. It's also important for folks to know we're at 100% staffing right now, as are all the police departments. In fact, we're over 100% because some of our deputies had vacations planned that got canceled. And so we have plenty of force out there. Crime and calls for service are down slightly, so they have a lot more free time than they ordinarily would to be able to monitor businesses both open and closed to make sure people are safe, make sure people are practicing social distancing, and also to make sure that any crimes of opportunity that people might be contemplating are quickly dealt with.